Hello, class, and welcome to our review of some of the poems in reading and writing about literature, as well as the sample student explication essay, so that we can hopefully, the purpose of this video is to share strategies for explicating so that hopefully you can feel more comfortable as you're moving forward, drafting uh, and writing your explication essay. So, to review explication, right? We always, when we're analyzing literature, start with the elements of fiction, right? Plot, what happens? Character, right? Who's involved? Setting, where and when, and milieu, right? Political and social setting, ideas having to do with identity, uh, both gender identity, cultural identity, uh, sexual identity, right? Again, these are all uh, themes that kind of resonate with our characters' actions, motivations, and development as we analyze character. So you've got character, plot, setting, style, right? Word choice, whether it's positive or negative connotations. Um, what else? When you think about word choice, are there figures of speech being used? Um, right? What specifically about the language, right? The metaphors, the similes, the personifications, the alliterations, things of that nature, right? So we always want to keep those ideas in mind when considering style. When you think about point of view, right? Is it first person? Is it third person? Is it objective or is it omniscient? Remember, objective is just the facts, right? Uh, Omniscient, right, is the narrator is all knowing. So just as when the characters in Shakespeare are on the stage, right, and they are sharing their thoughts and feelings with us in their soliloquies, right, they're all knowing uh, details, if you would, that are shared with us. And a lot of it, so again, it helps us better understand the character's motivations. Um, the thing about omniscience is a lot of times those villains that you love to hate, uh, part of that has to do with the fact that the villain is sharing information with you through omniscience that other characters in the TV show, in the play, right, in the movie, in the story, novel, poem, uh, right, might not be privy to. Uh, so through omniscience, a lot of times we feel a bond or a kinship with the reader. And I think personally, those villains that you love to hate, omniscience plays a role in why there is that kind of weird attraction to those characters. And a perfect example is Claudius when he's attempting to pray. He tells us, I'm not sorry. I don't want to give the stuff back. I like being king. I like being married to Gertrude. So I guess I'm not going to be forgiven. And I guess I'm not going to heaven. All right. Thanks for being honest. They may lie to everybody else in the story, poem, play, movie, TV show, but their omniscience with us, the reader and the viewer, is special. And it emphasizes what it is that they're saying. So keep these ideas in mind when we bring in the elements of poetry in addition to the elements of fiction, right? We want to think about the difference, when looking at point of view between the point of view of the speaker and the point of view of the listener, right? We want to think about imagery in regards to symbolism, right? Because when you look at symbols, it could be ideas, right? It could be objects, and in poems, imagery plays a big role. So you want to analyze what is seen, what is described, and also want to think about sound and sense, our next element of poetry, rhyme. When Shakespeare has something really important to say, he makes it rhyme, right? And um, that adds emphasis, and it's very difficult to make things rhyme. So it's a very special element, and it's definitely one that provides that emphasis. Assonance and consonants. Remember, repetition of vowel sounds, repetition of consonant sounds. When you look at the meter, look at the amount of syllables on a line and how many of them are stressed versus unstressed. Um, I always think about analyzing meters when you think about singing a cappella. If you're singing in the shower, you still keep the beat, right? As far as meter is concerned, there's only so many letters you can fit on a line, so many words. So how does the author arrange those? How does the poet arrange those? And how many syllables are on the line and which ones are stressed or unstressed for, again, emphasis. Form. What is the overall structure? And there's traditional forms, modern forms. Uh, Form plays a very big role because a lot of times with poetry, more of the traditional English or writing conventions are ignored, such as capitalization, spacing, punctuation, overall format. And so form plays a very important role again for emphasis. The key is you're unpacking the poem to try to understand what does it tell us about life, about the human experience. Because remember, as it said in our first reading, right, in class number 2, we read literature to learn about life and we analyze literature to learn about ourselves, to learn about society and culture and humanity and people, the human experience. So how are these elements of fiction adding, right, emphasis throughout the story? How's the writer using them to help develop, right, I say story, but the poem, right, just as a writer would use them to develop a story? How can analyzing them help us better understand what the focal point of the poem is with regard to what? Life, the human experience, right? Culture, society, identity, right? And when we look at identity, right? Gender identity, sexual identity, racial identity, right? So kind of keep these things in mind. So these two poems that we read for today, um, first off, on page 73, Shakespeare's Sonnet 73, if you want to read along with me. That time of year thou mayest in me behold, when yellow leaves or none or few do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold. Bare ruined choirs, where late the sweet birds sang, in me thou seest the twilight of such day as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self, that seals up all in rest. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire, that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. So let's go through this line by line, right? I always tell you to consider the title, the first lines, and the last lines when you're thinking about possible themes. Now, Shakespeare's sonnets are numbered, so this one is just titled Sonnet 73. So when we think about the first line specifically, it has even more emphasis. That time of year thou mayest in me behold, when yellow leaves or none or few do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold, bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang. So we don't have a period till the end of line 4. So we have enjambment, right? Remember, when you're looking at punctuation and you're analyzing poetry based on lineation, enjambment is when there's nothing at the end of a line. It adds emphasis, right? The line spills over to the next, building anticipation. And caesuras are when there's punctuation in the middle of the line, again, emphasizing a pause. So obviously themes of what? Autumn, winter. Is the speaker older? Is this about aging? Is this about life? Is this about death? Right? We have enjambment in line 1. We have 3 caesuras in line 2 and enjambment in line 2. Now line 3 is traditional with no caesuras and a comma at the end. And then line 4, we have the caesura in the middle and enjambment at the end. Notice the consonants, sweet, birds sang, those repetition of the S sounds. Uh, Next lines. In me thou seest the twilight of such day as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self that seals up all in rest. Now again, structure. Another 4 lines before the period with enjambment in line 1, normal end stop in line 2, normal end stop in line 3, caesura, right, in line 4, and then the period. So in that group of 4 lines, right, again, just like the first 4. So now let's read the next 4. Again, the idea of death's second self, the sunset fadeth in the west. Is it just about a sunset? Is it just about yellow leaves? What are the bare runed choirs, right? What is death's second self? Um, Definitely some interesting ideas being presented in this poem. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by. Uh, Again, we have this idea, the glowing of such fire, the ashes of youth, but it's consumed by that which what it's nourished by, which is kind of ironic, right? Um, Normally nourishment isn't meant to be right to lead to consumption, to consumed by the nourishment. um, we've got the personifications in here. Again, as we're moving forward, the last 2 lines, this thou perceivest which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. So this thou perceivest, who is the speaker speaking this poem to? Who is the listener? And thy which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. Is it suggesting the idea that we have to value those things that we love because we know there's the possibility that they might die? No, something to consider. Is it about appreciation of loved ones? So that being said, I'm going to pause the video right now and we'll make part 2. I'll make part 2 immediately after this, and I'll go over the Robert Herrick poem and the sample student essay. So hopefully you'll have a better understanding of explication. Thanks for listening, and as always, get in touch if you have any questions.